If your printer gets jammed on loading and unloading the filament, it's typically one problem. The end of the filament normally creates a little teardrop shape, and that gets jammed somewhere between the hot end and the rollers. So I'm going to show you how you can actually take this off, remove the motor, the heat sink, and the stepper motor, and we can find that filament and remove it. So at this moment there is no filament in here, there's nothing jammed up, but I want to show you how to take this apart. So we have our smaller Allen wrench, and we can take that on the side, and there's a small little bolt holding in this plastic piece. So unscrew that, make sure you keep that in a safe place, and the top simply pulls up. And what you have here is you have a cooling fan, you have a heat sink, a piece of metal with some fins on it, you have the extruder, stepper motor. So what we need to first do is take the fan off. I do this hot normally because sometimes the filament is actually stuck in the hot end. So I want to keep this going, but you got to be careful because of that fan, and that fan breaks super easy. So let's start by taking these two bolts out. I'm not going to take them out all the way. I'm just going to loosen them. Loosen this one too. And you got to be careful, there's multiple parts in here. So once they're loosened and this stuff moves, you can pull the fan back. And there's a piece of black metal, usually it's black, right behind that. And you'll see there's a fan. You just heard me hit it with my finger. It didn't hurt, but you can break that pretty easily. So there's a fan, a couple of spacers, those bolts that go all the way through, and this heat sink. So the heat sink fins should face the fan, and that flat area should face the heat block down here, the heat sink I should say, and also come in contact with the front of the extruder. I'm going to put this back and just try to keep it off to the side. Quite often you can kind of just let it dangle, but make sure nothing's going to hit that fan. And then you have the, let's move that a little out of the way, it's buzzing there. So you have the stepper motor, and you have this plastic with this spring. This is just the extruder. So if you notice, you push down on this, and it pushes this roller out of the way. That's what puts tension on your filament. It comes through the top, it goes between these two rollers, and pops out the bottom. So what normally happens is that filament can go through here. I'll just show you really quick. This is that lever I pressed down earlier when I want to do the quick release, when I'm doing the unloading. So it's extruding, and this is what I'm pressing down. So you can see it moves those rollers out of place, and then you can move that filament. But if this end has a teardrop shape, it can't go through that hole. It gets jammed right there, or it gets jammed in between those rollers. So normally you can take this motor off. The filament is usually going to be snapped right there, or it might even be in this little hole right here. Might be in this little hole right here, and it will probably come out of there, but that teardrop shape will not get through there. So if you have to, you can even, because remember the filament's going to be stuck in there, so you can actually take out this bolt as well if you need to. And that's the only thing that holds the extruder in place. Again, everything's super hot here. You got to be really careful what you're touching. And you also have to be careful with this because there's a spring in here and this might pop out. So take that bolt, secure it, and then what you get is, let's pop it out here, this piece right here. It's a little arm. You can see the rest of the extruder is bolted on. You can take the rest of it off right there with that little bolt there. But once you do that, you can get the filament out, get it out of your way. This can go back here. Our spring fell out. So let's put our spring back in there. Kind of get everything lined up. And then that bolt goes right back up in the top. Be careful, there's a little spacer in there. There's all sorts of little parts that can fall apart. Basically there's a brass piece of tubing in there, and the screw goes in the tubing, and the tubing goes in this piece of plastic.